What we done started. Look at what we done started. This the people party.
Peace and love, party people. This is Talib Kweli, the BKMC, the MCEO. This is, once again, as always, every week is People's Party, the world's best podcast. And as always and as usual, I have my lovely and talented and thought-provoking, hilarious co-host Jasmin Leigh in the place to be. What's up, Jasmin? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, this episode, I know Coco is young, but I'm pretty sure she's a fan of this guy.
Really? Because he does a lot of voice work on some of her favorite cartoons and movies
that we've seen over and over.
Okay. I've seen some of these movies over and over too.
Yes,
Yes, indeed. Our guest today, we're going to jump right into it because we got so much to talk to him about. He is a writer and actor. Of course, he does voice work. One of the most joyful comedians in the game. When others try to be hardcore, this man goes the opposite direction. His warmth feels like a breath of fresh air. He makes you feel good about yourself, and the world needs more of that. His special Giggle Fit, which is an amazing title for a special, is a testament to his slow burn, almost musical style of joke telling. He uses his voice and an instrument, and his hesitations and pauses are artful all on their own. You've seen him on the screen. He started his career in Portlandia. You've seen Crash and Bernstein, Drunk History, and Loot, just to name a few. In addition to his stand-up and on-screen work, he has also carved out a space for this voice work we were talking about. BoJack Horseman, Adventure Time, Trolls, Bob Burgers, Harley Quinn. This is like the Mount Rushmore of shit you want to do voice work for.
Right.
When he's not killing it in comedy and movies and voice acting, he's on Twitch where you can catch him playing video games like Cuphead and Fall Guys. I'm going to have to trust y'all on this because I don't know anything about video games.
You don't play video games?
I do not, but we're going to have to ask this man about it. I admire this man as an entertainer, and I'm excited about where his career is going to go from here. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Funches is in the place to be.
Funches.
Yes, what's up, bro? Look at this merch game.
I know, I want
one. It's crazy.
Oh, we can get you one.
Yeah, I'll wear it. That's my favorite color.
Well, I'm glad we matched.
There's a typo on this. It says, ladies and Ron Funches in the place to be.
Perfect.
I was like, he's bringing ladies with him. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think my wife would be into that.
What's up, Ron? How you feeling?
Oh, it's a dream to be here. This is beautiful.
Man.
It's amazing.
I'm glad you're here with us.
I'm happy to be here. I mean, before we get started, I just got to say, I don't want to be those people who like, I grew up off of who you were, but like, I was formed, like a lot of my mental makeup, a lot of the way that I think about comedy, the way I think about life came from you and from Black Star and from that era of hip hop. So to be sitting here with you today is amazing to me. So
that feels good. I'm glad that we could pay it back or pay it forward. I don't know the actual terminology for what I'm doing, but I'm glad. I appreciate that. Shout out to Combat Jack.
Yes.
I know that you had a friendship with him.
Yes.
Reggie Osei, his son, is doing wonderful things in Brooklyn, and his show is sort of the blueprint for what we're trying to do here. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to continue the tradition of what Combat Jack did.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, that was one of the first podcasts. I don't even know if they had a name of podcast back then, you just like an internet show is what you would call it back then. And just the access that you would have to these people, the fact that I could then tweet at him and he would hit me back. And through that we started to get a little bit of a relationship and conversation, just talking about as I started to progress more in comedy and learn more about entertainment, and I would just see him starting to get more success. And I remember one of my favorite things was seeing when they got the video show of it, and they had the intro, and it's all them just mean mugging in front of helicopters and stuff. And I was like, "You got your own show, and
get
not
ready
one
for
smile, not one thing. You can't crack a giggle."
They were hard. Shout out to Pete and Dallas. Yeah, they were very hard.
Matt Raz, still a buddy of mine. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hold on. I think I ordered some pot for you.
Thank you.
And I still call it pot because I was born in the 70s. Hello?
You want some of this reefers?
Yeah. I'm going to send somebody out to get it for you.
Do you have your ID, young man?
The grass.
Hold on. Somebody needs to go buy this Cannabis, which is the woke intersectional way to say it.
I would get it.
I'm gonna give you the money back.
That saw where that went.
Yeah.
Oh, there's your money. There's your money back, Ramucci.
I'll be taking money from white people at this show. That's why I'll be.
That's beautiful. Yeah, move it around, redistribute.
Right, that was reparations.
Yes.
You were born in a lovely Carson, California, but you were raised in the South Side of Chicago for a bit. right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Your
sir.
mother was a social worker there, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did your experience on the south side of Chicago shape you?
I mean, it was for a lot of years. It was terrifying times for me. Really, I just feeling unsecure. With my mom being like a single mom, and she's always going into like the projects in Chicago, and being worried about her coming back home. And just not really being able, like losing like electricity, losing phone, just things not ever really being stable in the house. So I always looked at that for a long time. I didn't really like Chicago because I always associated it with being scared and being in a negative situation. It wasn't until as I started going back as an adult, and I could appreciate it more and see how beautiful the city was. And also then now I'm very appreciative that even though we had a lot of harsh times, because there was a lot of art and culture in the area naturally, that like my mom would take me to jazz festival or Taste of Chicago, and I saw music, I saw comedy very young. Like the first time I saw a concert was also the first time I saw a comedian. I saw Morris Day in the Time in the park in Chicago, and they had Shucky Ducky opening for them.
Yeah, Shucky.
And just
Shucky
being a
Ducky.
kid, hearing that Shucky Ducky quack quack.
Right, quack, quack.
Yeah, that's all I needed,
Right.
And so I didn't know I wanted to be a comedian for years later, but it was always like seeing people like that, having that around me always interested me.
Right. And then at some point you moved to Salem, Oregon with your pops, right? Mm-hmm. And it's close. How close is Salem to Portland?
It's about an hour away.
About an hour. So people really identify with the Portland life in Salem. The first time people saw, I don't know if this is the first time people saw you on TV, but one of your earliest performances was on Portlandia. I'm a huge fan of that show. I remember watching that episode. I had no relationship with who you were. And you played, I don't think you had any lines, but you were playing a baseball player, which I love baseball. I love that episode. I think Nick Kroll was on that episode that you were in as well, right? How did you get that part on that show? And can we talk a little bit about Fred and Carrie and what they represented with Portlandia?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was like just all about good timing, coming up in Portland, Oregon, doing stand-up at the time where people were more interested in Portland and then the show was coming out. I was just lucky that I was doing stand-up at that time. So Fred and Carrie would come to the clubs and just look for people, and then they would just pick people and put them in the show. And that's pretty much how they were just looking for a group of comedians to come be baseball players. And so I just went in that, and I saw myself on screen, and it was like you said, there was no lines for me, but just the fact that like they were very harsh to everybody on the baseball team, and then they get to me and they're like, I like this guy. And there was something about that where I was like, oh, I like this. I want to be on TV more. I want to do this more. And I really appreciate that, because I think it's like just that spirit of a lot of times people come into a place and they bring their own crew or they bring their everything. They don't use the whole environment, and for them to give back and to help local comedians and local people and just the businesses there, I always appreciate it.
Okay, so
Oh, hi, Jasmine.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Hey.
Okay, so I watched I Love Lucy like it was a new show growing up. I don't know what is my favorite episode. It would have to be a toss-up between the chocolate plant when they were on the assembly line, or, of course, the wine episode. But you also grew up watching Lucille Ball, and John Mulaney also loves I Love Lucy and called you the most joyful comedian in a tweet. What is it about her that you find so special, and what is it that influenced you?
Oh, man, it's hard to put that into a few sentences, but I'll do my best. It's just that she's just such a boss in every way, like the best of the best. The fact that like her makeup artist was Max Factor to me is so crazy and wild and legendary. The fact that like she had a show about interracial marriage in the height of McCarthyism when people didn't want to see that type of stuff. They said they would never buy a relationship between a white lady and a Cuban dude or someone of Hispanic descent, and for her to be like, well, this is my husband, so they'll buy it. I just think it's so boss. And then just her skill level, just her face, her physical comedy, and the fact that it always came from like joy, and it always came from trying to overextend her own cleverness. And the era, especially with like Gracie Allen and like no disrespect to those actresses, they were legendary too. But like a lot of the characters, especially for female roles back then, was about being a dummy. And she, even though she would get over her head, she was never a dummy. She was too smart for her own good.
Right.
And I always was attracted to that. I was like that.
Yeah, I think that she's one of the reasons I wanted to act, for sure.
Yeah,
I grew up watching I Love Lucy as well. It was my favorite show when I was growing up.
Yeah.
It's something about that show that stands the test of time.
I
mean, not just the show, but just who she is as a performer.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I was a little kid, she was still, I think the Lucille Ball show was on when I was a little kid, where she was older.
Yeah. Was that the third one?
Maybe the third one or fourth one. I don't know. There was so
with
many.
The second husband. And
Yeah, she was so influential. Your joke, the Linda tattoo, is almost as perfectly written of a joke that it could be. It's like, to me, it's so efficient. I feel like that joke was influenced by Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give you a chance to tell us about how Mitch Hedberg influenced you as a comedian.
Yeah, like Lucille Ball is one of my biggest influences in comedy. But I'd say my 3 total influences for the pillars for me. And then there's a guy I found out later in my career who I'm like, oh man, I'm basically just copying his style completely. But my 3 influences when I was younger were Dave Chappelle, Lucille Ball, and Mitch Hedberg. Especially because I just grew up around comedy all the time, and my mom and I would watch Comic View. I know you got Earthquake on another show, and to me that's another one. I'm like, man,
he's pulling up in a few minutes.
Yeah, that's legendary.
Yeah.
But I couldn't always relate to like the Richard Pryor, the Martin Lawrence type of humor where they were like, the women wanted them. Everybody, they were very outward and egotistical and more suave, and I was shy and I was like quiet, and I read a lot of books. And when I saw Dave Chappelle, and I saw in particular Mitch Hedberg, who was the guy who like wore these sunglasses and just kept his head down because he had stage fright, I was like, oh, you can be scared and still do this.
Yes.
And the way he writes and the way that he looks at the world is a big influence so for you to say that joke reminds you of him is a beautiful compliment. Thank you.
I'm a huge fan of his. And I feel like your pacing, we talked about in the intro a little bit, the punchlines are there, but it's not just about the punchline. It's about the presentation. It's patient. It's like a slow burn. And I definitely hear Mitch Hedberg in that. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I always try to look at things like, and I think it comes from growing up listening to more like albums, where everything to me is a part of a full meal. Like the whole presentation, if you could come to see me do Comedy Live now, like every part of it is somewhat thought out. I wouldn't say completely thought out, but like even the playlist that you come to the show and you listen beforehand is something I pick out so that it will have themes of things I'm going to talk about in the show later. And so I've always just been a big proponent of, whether it's through hip hop or pro wrestling, just being very efficient in everything that you do, not wasting words, not wasting movement.
Yes, indeed.
You're very upfront about having a son with autism, Malcolm, and it's become a part of your life. What led you to share that piece of your life, and what have other parents of autistic kids said about it?
It's just knowing that my son wasn't going anywhere, and I'm the type of comedian that I talk about my life. I talk about what's going on with me. I'm not really into like news or topical things that much. So I talk about what I love, and I love my son. So I knew I was going to talk about him, and him having autism is just something that's like part of our lives, and it's not something to hide, and it's not something to like bemoan and feel and grieve like constantly. It's just part of our life. It doesn't completely define him, and to talk about it has really gotten me the best feedback in the world. Like I'll always say, like a lot of the best things in my life have come from my son, and from talking about my son having autism. It's allowed me to meet so many great people who tell me that they have family members with autism. I met people who then got tested and found out that they had autism.
Right.
And then, I'm a big sneakerhead, and I got to design my own shoes and like donate the proceeds to autism awareness, and all that stuff wouldn't have happened if I wasn't, talking about my son. And it was a little scary at first. There were comedians who thought I was just making fun of him, or just, I remember to this day, this lady was just like, "Oh, I like those jokes about your retarded kid," and I was like, "Oh, you don't get this at all. You don't get what I'm doing at all." And so it made me pause for a minute and be like, "Oh, am I taking advantage of him? Am I doing something out of bounds here?" But when I started getting feedback from actual people with autism saying, "I love that you just, you treat it as a normal part of life," and it just made me, those are the messages where I'm like, man, I'm actually doing something that's valuable.
Yes, for sure.
That's so dope, and thank you for being a shining example and holding it down for the single fathers as well.
Thank you very much for saying that. I really appreciate that.
Yes, thank
Absolutely.
you. All right, well, I couldn't tell, but apparently you love weed, and you've been known to describe it as a hug on the inside, and I cannot agree
That's exactly
with you
what it
more.
feels like.
I love being hugged from the inside.
Okay.
What type of influence does cannabis have on your art?
Oh, it's got a big influence on my art. It's just got an influence on my life as I learned to, when I was younger, it was a coping mechanism for a life where it was very stressful, especially having a kid when I was 20 years old, and then being a single dad and having sole custody of my son when he was a teen. It was like just stress. And it was a very good stress reliever, especially for a person who, like myself, who I'm allergic to alcohol, so I don't drink at all. And then there was like a transitional period where I started to get more money and started to enjoy my life, and I had to rebalance and be like, "Oh, you don't need to smoke to the point of excess, or smoke to the point of just knocking yourself out. You were doing that when you didn't like your life. Like now it's more about using it as a tool for like creativity and rewards when I'm done with work, or if I'm just playing Twitch with my friends and playing games, which has been my whole, I do like vision boards and different things every year. And for this year, I had a couple of mantras. One of my mantras is less work, more money, which I'm highly working on. And another mantra I had was just that everything in its place. And so I'm trying to make sure like there's a time and a place for me to be high. And then if I'm on like a red carpet or I'm at work acting, I have to be okay with like being fully sober and not getting high at all, because I was just sick of seeing pictures of me like on the red carpet and I look bombed out of my mind. I'm like, oh, I want to look dapper, I want to look smart, I want to look cool. So I started to trying to work to change that and just balance it out now.
And here at the People's Party, we just hand you joints.
That's one of the reasons
then I know this is the place. Everything in its place.
That's right. This is a safe space.
That's why I stopped smoking on People's Party, because my eyes are already really little. And if I smoke a couple of hits, my eyes are like this. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to see myself doing an interview with my eyes closed. But
See how that work?
But I wonder, because you said you don't do smoking when you're acting and stuff. Do you do sober stand-up, or do you smoke before you go on stage?
It depends on the situation. If I'm like at the Comedy Store on a random Wednesday, Thursday night, probably a little bit stoned. If I'm taping a special or something like that, and then I'm probably completely sober. It just depends on the thing. But I'm just never like, I usually am not like super stoned right before show. It's not like I'm smoking out right before I get on to go on stage. We'll wait till after, and we have like fun and play video games. It's a fun life. I'm really into it.
Yeah.
Do you ever look at I don't know if you're this vain, but I am. You ever look at like Getty images of yourself on like red carpets and things you've done? Like you might see a picture online and then you get caught in the rabbit hole of Getty images of things through your life.
I've seen a few. I mean, that's how I was like, oh man, I look too high all the time.
So for me, it's not the looking high. I don't have a problem looking high. I'm fine with that. But for me, it was, I stopped wearing, for shows, I stopped wearing like nice clothes with colors in them for shows, because all the pictures of me from a certain period, because I was doing 200 shows a year. So most of the pictures of me are just on stage or off stage. And it's just, I just look wet. Yeah. In every picture. Yeah. Covered with sweat.
Yeah.
Just covered with sweat. And because like, I'd wear a nice shirt with like flowers on it, a really expensive shirt that I was very happy to have. And then the picture of me is just with that nice shirt, just shoveled and wet.
See-through. And
And so now in the last 10 years, I only wear black on stage. I've turned into like Richard Lewis or somebody. Like I've turned into like George Carlin. You know what I'm saying? Like when you see these comedians or certain performers, oh, this is why he only wears black.
Yes, yeah.
So instead of Rico Suave, you were Rico Suete.
I was Rico something.
Oh yeah, I got tons of pictures of me in t-shirt and someone hugged up on me and it's just a giant wet splotch.
Yeah.
No. One of the best pictures on the internet is me, Kanye, and Yasin. And Kanye and Yasin had pulled up to my show at Irving Plaza, and I had on a really nice Prada hat. It was like the first hat I'm a hat guy. First hat I really spent money on. I spent like $400 on this Prada hat back in 20 years ago. And the picture is like me hugged up with these two guys, and the hat is just drenched. It's the only time I ever wore that hat. I wore it once. Shout out to the homie Chef Nikki from Columbus, Ohio, who is Dave Chappelle's personal chef, a good friend of mine, but also she is the queen of infused, is what she calls herself. Mm-hmm. She makes food with cannabis and mushrooms. And you've said in your work that your favorite show is The Great British Bake Off. That is definitely a show that a stoner would like. But then you got to work not on Chopped, but Chopped 420. So that looked fucking awesome.
Oh, it was a dream job.
Tell me about that dream job.
It was amazing. Like, you know, again, most of the time when I get prepared for work, I have to be like, okay, for the next 12, 14 hours, you gotta be sober. And this was a job where they made me sign a contract that said you have to be okay with smoking weed on camera. And I was like, this is gonna be fun. They had this greenhouse with just wonderful weed that they let me take a bunch home and just hanging out with chefs, and it was great, except for they ruin, like, when you're on a shoot and you get the catering, you know, they ruin catering, you know, because they hated everything that the catering person was making, you know. They were like, nah, this is trash. I was like, this seems all right.
You can do better.
Yeah. They were talking trash on the catering. But it was beautiful. Just, to see the growth as a person who, like, you know, just loves marijuana and used it for a long time, and seeing the way that edibles have gone from like being these like ditchweed brownies that you didn't know the doses of to like having this fine dining with cannabis and going to these dinners. And the best part about it is that now I'm friends with a lot of chefs. So like I get to go to these nice dinners. I'm working on trying to make a show here in LA where we kind of take that kind of spirit of the show into just a live show where it'll be like comedy and cannabis and food and just a nice atmosphere. Because anytime I go into things, it feels like, you know, that vibe where you're in like Hawaii and you're just chilling out and you're just like, man, work is gone. I'm feeling good. It feels like that. And I love that. I was like, I want to bring that to more people.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, man, I do that every night. Clayton English was on that show too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my dude. Shout out to him.
I love Clayton.
Bun B introduced your album, The Funches of Us, and he was a guest on our podcast, first guest. Shout out Bun B. How did you and Bun's friendship form?
It's weird to me, you know, just the internet is magical in those ways, right?
It
like
is.
where you can meet people who were heroes of yours growing up. I'm friends with so many people now that I never thought I would be. But Bun, I was on this show and I didn't know, but Bun's just a big fan of like comedy and sitcoms and stand up, but like he likes sitcoms and stuff. And so he was like, oh man, you're really funny on this sitcom. And we just started talking. I told him how much I was, you know, loved him and stuff. And I told him I was putting this album out, and he was like, yeah, I'd love to. No problem. Send over a track right away to me. We've been friends ever since. He's been on my podcast. He's just like giving me advice about my marriage. It's just, you know, real like big brother. And especially for me as someone who, he's giving me one of the best like cosigns, for lack of a better term, in the fact that like, I'm like, oh, I feel like because I do so much positive stuff and smiley stuff, for lack of a better term, that some people be like, oh, that's phony, or that's not what we need to be doing. And for Bun was like, I fuck with you because you're you.
Yes.
And you're always doing you, and you do you to your
be.
best of your ability, and you don't show anything else. You don't pretend to be anybody else, and that's what I like about you. And for him to say that to me is always, that's one of the things when people talk trash or say something on the internet, I'm always like, I always have that in my heart being like, you can't tell me anything.
I'm friends with Bun B.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly how I feel.
You murdered.
And Bun B really did shoot somebody.
Yes, he did.
Who came to his house and tried to break in his house.
Yeah, he did my podcast a couple of weeks after that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bun B, the Trill OG. I just picture Bun B's marriage advice. You got to keep it trill.
Yeah. He's just about, the best advice he gave me was just like, about making sure my job was to bring my partner peace of mind. Just never to try to relieve stress, not add stress, to just bring my wife peace of mind and her in return to me. And to look at a relationship like that, it kind of changes the way that you act or the way you go at things sometimes.
Yeah, shout out to Queenie as well.
Yeah.
I try not to do comedians' jokes. Like, because sometimes people do that to comedians, right? They come up to you and they do your jokes for you.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not how the fuck it goes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But this joke that you did was so much more than a joke. You talking about how the media tries to tell us there are only two different types of black men, a thug or dead. And I related to that. I am a black nerd. I have a voice that people say is like a white voice. So when you speak on that, I relate to that. And when you speak about Bun liking you for that reason, I really relate to that.
No, I mean, again, that's one of the reasons why I feel like people like you and Yassine and just that whole, for lack of a better term, like that ruckus era for me was like classic hip hop, as far as like, this is when it's okay for you to truly be yourself. And like, we love music and we're smart and we're putting out good music and we're talking about being healthy. We're talking about religion. We're talking about discipline, like real, like an evolution and next step of the, Tribe Called Quest, Native Tongues whole vibe. And to see that, like, kind of get waned out over years, and now you see it kind of coming back now with people like Coast Contra and stuff, which I really enjoy.
We're on this show.
Yeah, no, I saw that. Yeah, that's real. I mean, I was so when I found them, I love it. It's one of those things when you know you love somebody, because then I found them and I was mad that other people had already knew about.
No, they're mine.
Yeah, I was like, man, you gotta find about this group. I'm gonna see if maybe they'll do something with me. And I was like, oh no, they're already touring with Chappelle.
Word up. Shout out to the Coast. You're a Coast Guard.
Yes.
Or Coast Guard,
yeah,
as they would
for
say.
sure.
I'm glad that you like my type of hip hop. That makes me feel seen and heard. But you also famously like ignorant rap music.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Which I do too. I like a lot of ignorant shit.
Oh yeah.
Even the Jay-Z song Ignorant Shit, I actually like that song a lot.
You can be both.
You said that Juicy J is the black Willy Wonka. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Because he gave out scholarships for people who twerk. So your relationship with hip hop is very interesting. You said that you knew you were a success when Ludacris tweeted out one of your jokes. Do you remember the joke?
Yeah, it was a joke about him that I wrote. Yeah, that I still believe to this day, that I said that Ludacris is like the squirt soda of hip hop. Because I'm always never looking for it, but when I try it, I'm like, oh, this is pretty refreshing.
Because
He's
no
like a
one goes
freshman.
and buys a squirt. You just happen upon a
You
squirt.
just happen upon it at a barbecue,
Right.
and you're like, oh,
It's
damn,
in
why
the
am I not
cooler.
drinking
Yeah.
squirt?
Right. It's
Yeah.
in the cooler
Yeah.
next to a Dr. Pepper.
Yes.
Yeah, man. I love Juicy J because you may say no to ratchet pussy, but
Juicy
Juicy
J
J
can't. No, I just love longevity.
favorite
and
line.
People who kind of get cooler, but with age and still be themselves, and like, can tap into that younger group and help them out. Like, I always love that type of stuff. So I love Juicy J. And most of the rappers that the last few rappers I really started liking either went to jail or died. So I'm trying to like not get on. I'm like, I'm a bad luck, so I don't want to be.
Well, stay away from Atlanta rappers.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going through it in
They're
Atlanta.
going through it.
Yeah, I know, but man, I was real into Young Dolph. I was loving
Man,
Young
rest
Dolph.
in peace to
man.
Young Dolph.
That's a shame.
Now, you referenced your drastic weight loss. You played one of the fat boys in the Art of the Deal movie. And now you lost 140 pounds. Can you take us through that process and talk about why you decided to make this choice?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I was always a heavy person, husky kid, heavy adult, never really, my mom was a single mom and she was just had a lot of focus, a lot of things going on, and Barb just paying the bills and keeping us afloat. So as far as like health, she would try with health, but she was not good at it. She'd be like, well, let's go jog around the park. And if we jog around the park 4 times, I'll take you to Burger King and we can go get a milkshake,
Right.
So it always was, I never had the tools instilled in me to have a healthy diet, which like most Americans don't. It was always kind of held in check by the fact that I didn't have money. So I would be heavy, but once I started working and had a career and getting on shows and getting a little bit more money and Postmating food, my weight started to blow up. I went from like 280 to 320 to 340 to at my heaviest, I was like 367. And I just had a conversation with my mom around Thanksgiving and she was just honest with me. It was like a few events. She was just like, I don't like buying you clothes 3-4X, doesn't make me feel good, makes me feel like I'm going to be at your funeral before you're at mine. And then having someone on the plane that I was traveling on wake me up and being like, I feel like I'm worried you might have sleep apnea. And I was like, strangers are just worried that I'm going to die in my sleep.
Right.
So it was just a couple of things. And then I was very lucky to have Bill Lawrence, who is, he created the show I was on, Undateable, and he created another show, Ted Lasso, he created Scrubs. Just real, like, as far as like where you're like, man, are there any like rich, cool white dudes? You're like, there is one. This dude's fucking kind of real cool.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Bill Lawrence.
He's cool as fuck. I love that guy.
Yeah, Scrubs is my shit. Scrubs is the type of show that when it comes on, I stop what I'm doing. I'm just gonna watch an episode of Scrubs right now.
I didn't like Scrubs before I met him.
Okay, I was on it. I was on it.
I
was mad when it was off the air.
I'm just real loyal to Grey's Anatomy. I can't watch any other doctor show.
You solo doctor
I've seen
Lloyd.
Listen,
every
Scrubs is
single
not. That's a
episode.
false equivalency. Scrubs is like, it's not a doctor show.
It's a workplace
It's a
comedy.
bromance show.
Yeah.
About the relationship between Donald and Zach.
You get it.
I'm a fan.
You get it. Well, Bill hooked me up with my trainer that I still use to this day, Jorgen. He paid for my trainer for like a year.
Oh, wow.
And then I took over once I had my own finances together, and we've been together ever since. So it's just been a slow battle of losing weight. Pandemic came, put a little bit of weight back on, and then been back at it again. And I turned 40 in like 7 months, and my goal right now is just to try to be in the best health of my life when I turn 40. Now I got my new son and everything. Just trying to take advantage of these opportunities.
Yes.
Well, you look great, brother, and congratulations on making it to 40 as a black man. That's 40 has been my favorite year so far.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's beautiful to
I
hear.
really enjoyed 40. We said that to Coach Contra. I was like, when y'all get to 40, bro,
Yeah.
it's gonna be lit.
Oh, yeah. It's just a shame. We just lost somebody real bright in the comedy community, 28 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, Jack Knight. And just a damn shame, because that's what I felt like. I was like, man, like, as a person who now is just getting myself together and like had my house and had my little arcade machines and stuff, where I'm like, man, I'm loving my life. The things that I thought that I could do, I'm pulling them together. And I felt like, man, I'm seeing like someone like him who, like, when I was 28, I was still like on the road in Oregon and just struggling, and like this guy had like TV credits and writing skills, and to see him not be able to enjoy that like 30s to 40s, and to see the work that he would put out in the future is, feels like such a big loss to me, and it's something I've been just upset about, because he's just a bright light and just a good evolution of voice of black comedy to me, as far as like, because I feel like I'm a part of that evolution of like, there had to be a time where you were either like very black militant in comedy, or you were putting yourself lower than so that you could seem okay. And then they're like, for me, it's always been like, look, I don't represent anybody. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be intelligent. I'm going to be successful. That's my way of contributing things. And then Jack was like on this whole nother level of like, I don't even have to try that hard if I don't want to. Mm-hmm. If I want to do something, I will. If I don't, I don't. I'm valuable no matter what. And I love that, moving beyond the like, we got to work twice as hard to get half as much type of mentality. Yes. You know? And he had none of that. And so I want to see more people like that.
Man, Jack was freaking amazing. Jack was the reason I got serious about comedy because I'd been doing comedy, been going to the Comedy Store, hanging out, whatever. And he was just like, that was my fucking dude. Like, that was my late night dime buddy, my drinking buddy, my talking shit buddy, my back bar comedy. Like, but it's just crazy because I didn't realize how many lives Jack touched, how many comedians Jack touched. And it's just like, mental health is just such a big problem in comedy. You literally, your life is in shambles, but yet your job is to get on stage and to make other people laugh. And like those other people don't take time or don't know to take the time to realize that you're not laughing yourself. And although you have a smile on your face, like so many things are going on. And I really hope that with this, and I know I have a lot of ideas that I'm gonna put into motion, but I really hope that the LA comedy community really pulls together and does something, has some kind of groups. Like even right now, like I feel like there should be some outreach group for people to come and sit and to talk because it's so many people that are really hurting right now. Mm-hmm. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. I think it's a big lesson about like learning to value the balance of your life and what makes you happy overall. And it's not always going to be success and money and jobs. And because sometimes that turns into a lot of pressure and turns into a lot of stress. And I can't speak for Jack. I was friends with him. I've known him since he was 19, 20. I saw him when he was like open micing, and I remember him watching like Dave when Dave was first coming back, and they brought him and his buddy Valentino on stage, and I was like, man, he's never gonna quit now. You know, he's gonna be into this forever. And to see him just 3-4 years after that blossoming, being on these shows and writing for people and people loving him, and I would always run into him because I would open for Aziz and he would open for Aziz as well. And so we just always check in with each other, and I just see him there, and I would have never have guessed from any of it that he was struggling with any of that type of stuff. But my lesson I always put into my life is that to never, that like you said, people don't know, and it's not always their duty to know, so you got to put yourself first. You got to balance your life first. And if things are stressful and you want to step away for a minute, if you want to go on a vacation, that's why I tell people all the time, because I know so many comedians, they get on a roll and stuff, and they never want to take a break, they never want to do anything. I'm like, why do this job? Why get into this if you're not going to have fun, if you're not going to enjoy your life, if you're not going to go do things that make this fun for you, instead of just like running yourself into the ground so that other people can get paid and then they'll just manage your agent, somebody else when you're gone, you know?
Yeah, there's so many interlopers and agents and people taking advantage. And we just talked to Aja Monet about that rise and grind culture, that sort of hyper-capitalistic idea that you have to always create a product. Not everybody's mentally ready for that type of pressure.
No, I think that's a false premise. I don't believe in that. I mean, I think that's a trick. That's a trick that the people who want the content put to trick you to constantly produce, that you have to always do that. And yeah, it does work for some people, and they have created an algorithm so that works, but that's not what this whole industry and business is. Like, my internet presence is minuscule compared to my real world presence. You know, like people mess with me heavily in the real world. I'll post something online, 10 likes, 20 likes, you know?
Interesting,
so I always try to remember that. Another thing that people like Jack and other friends of mine have been talking about recently is just really rebelling against that, and this art of like, I make art, I don't make content.
I love it. Yeah, I'm really against the term content creator. I hate this term because who is not a content creator? We all, just by the nature of being human beings, we're constantly creating content. But are you a content creator or are you an artist? You know, there's a huge difference.
Yeah. No, you talk to people who are about that content creation life and they don't care about the skill level. They don't care about the end product as long as they're putting something out every day.
Yeah.
As long as something is coming out so that they're talking about you. Hell, if you talk about how crappy it is, it's only more engagement for me.
Right.
You know? You see that in comedy with certain people. You see that in music. You see that everywhere. But I think, like, real art, real creativity, you know, it's something, again, that Bill taught me when I was mad one day that my special was going to be on Comedy Central and not Netflix. I was like, oh, it's going to be harder. And he's like, yeah, it'll be harder for some people to see it. Not everybody's going to see it. You have to get over that. He's all like, but the right people will see it.
That's right.
And that's what matters for you, because you're going to be, and now it's like, you know, I work with Maya Rudolph on a TV show.
That's
and that
right.
wouldn't come from just like tweeting out because I have 2 million Twitter followers, because I have skill level.
That show looks so fun. That one scene that they did when they went on the Hot Wings podcast, man, that's one of the most brilliant pieces of television I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, Maya's, I mean, if we talk about Lucille Ball, like, that's what I've been saying, is like, it's like I get to work with a Lucille Ball.
That's right.
It's amazing. It's to get to watch her, again, boss on every level, not only. I've tell this story sometimes, like, I originally turned the audition down because I was working on my own show. And I wanted to be a lead of my own show. I wanted to create my own show. It's still, I mean, it's just a dream to me. I have a friend, Chris Estrada, has got a show coming out called This Fool that looks amazing to me. And just to be able to put out your vision and have your style come out is something that I still have like a strong desire to do, but so much so that I originally turned it down, and then they came back and I was like, I'm being a dummy if I don't at least pursue this and check it out, because I had told myself, I was like, well, you need your, because they turned my show down. And I was like, well, what do you need? I know I'm reading my script. I read a bunch of scripts because I get scripts sent to me. My script's better than 90% of these scripts, just objectively. To me, I guess you couldn't be, but how I'm saying
as objectively as you could
I
possibly
could be. And so what am I missing? And I'm like, oh, you don't have that juice. You don't have that thing. So you need your parks and recreation. You need your ensemble thing that people can get to know you a little more. And then I get this audition, and I'm like, no, because I don't even look in. Half the time, I don't know people's backgrounds or anything. I just go by the script or whatever. And I was like, the script is fun. It looks good, but I'm working on my thing. And then my manager's like, well, you know, this is like the people who made Parks and Rec and the people who did this and did that.
Which is, I'm such a Parks and Recreations fan. One of these industry sites interviewed me in their last season, and I got to talk. I mean, I love that show. I watch that show all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm such a huge fan.
Oh my
It's
God,
hilarious.
I love the first season. The first pure season that people were like, this is not that good.
They were still finding their legs.
I love the first season.
I've seen the first season more than I've seen the rest of
Mine is season 3. Season 3, when they established Rob Lowe and they established Adam Scott as main characters, when they finished shuffling around, when they all locked in, and when they brought in Ben Schwartz, John Ralphio, when he started becoming a thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then because of him, you're able to bring in Henry Winkler. Like, this show is just like...
Yeah, it was on fire. It was wild.
Yeah, man.
I wanted to share something real quick, talking about rushing that Viola Davis had posted. But it just says, your creations won't be any better just because you got it done quicker. You don't need to rush towards your destiny. And that is what the new mantra these new entertainers need to look at.
No, absolutely. So many people want to get it quick. I mean, that's not new. That's as old as time. But I think the process of getting better, which is, you know, my podcast is about, is just like enjoying the ride. I even tell my wife, like, because she'll talk to me and she's like, well, I see you as this. I want you to be this classy person, and you get into arguments with people online, and I'm like, I'm learning. I'm headed that way, but you got to let me make the mistakes to get to that way. I can't just turn a switch and be fully matured. I have to go through these experiences. And I think that's like, when you have that in any career, it just makes you able to handle things and be a little more flappable. Again, like when you guys talking to Earthquake, you know, he had that special come out and people are talking about it. Everyone talking about, whether you're a comedian, whether it's my mom, whether it's a nurse I met on the street, people are like, oh man, that was a special. Yeah. When people find real stuff, they know, you know?
Yeah. Shout out to Earthquake, definitely. Now, you've done voice work on cult classics, BoJack Horseman. We had Open Mike Eagle on here, and I really, man, was really, really impressed with this guy, man. As a MC, I was impressed with him. I wasn't really familiar with his music before I had a chance to interview him, and just going down the rabbit hole of his music was great. But also, I really wanted to be able to have real conversation with him about what he loves, and so I decided to watch a whole shitload of Adventure Time before I sat with him. Because, that's his thing, right?
Yeah.
You got to work on this show. You have such a playful voice. As Bermucci said, he said your voice dances as you speak. How do you get into this voice work?
Just having a weird voice for me. It was a curse that turned into a blessing, and I love it. I know real voice actors. I'm friends with a gentleman named Eric Baza, who is like the guy. He's Bugs Bunny. He's like Puss in Boots. He's a Ninja Turtles. He's like everything because he can switch his voice and he can mimic. From the very get-go, I was like, my strength is in being me. So I have to lean more and more and more into being me. I have the lisp. I have my voice is kind of like a mix of like Midwest and a little like Southern type of thing, and it used to be something that people made fun of me. I worked at a call center and people always assumed I was a Southern lady named Rhonda, and I would just play that out if it started going.
I'm going with it.
Yeah, I go, oh, bless your heart, sweetie. We'll get these fees taken care of. You just have a good day. And then so from just doing stand-up and having my voice get out, I started getting asked to just come in and do auditions. And like one of my very first auditions was for a TV spinoff of this movie called Home, which was like just Jim Parsons' movie with Alien. And kind of just once you start doing one thing, they have your voice sample. And so they just would start sending me out for more auditions. And I got the Trolls, and I knew a lot of writers as friends with Lisa Hannawalt, who was one of the artists and co-creators of BoJack Horseman. So that's how I kind of started working on that, and it just kept building and building, because a lot of people don't, at least comedian wise, some people don't want to do it because they feel like it's either beneath them or not like purists in comedy. But I was always a fan of like, Robin Williams and Chris Rock, so I was big into that, and I had my kid already, so and I just love any type of job where I'm like, oh, we're going to do 2 episodes. And if I'm locked in and I can knock them out in a half an hour and I can just go on my day and just do these in my pajamas, I'm like, this is the best. Why not?
Yeah, voice acting is a lot harder than it looks. I actually interviewed for the Motown cartoon that's on Netflix.
Motown Magic?
Yeah, Motown
that's my jam. I really like that show. I'll be watching that on my own without my kid.
It's really good. I watch it too without my kid. That was like one of the first things, like maybe like one of the first like big auditions I had out here. And I had to do like 5 different characters, and I did not prepare for it correctly. And my voice was just like trash because I didn't know how to switch so fast, and then not having anybody to bounce off to. Like, it's just, I can't believe that people would think that it's lesser than, because it's so much more work. You were on Trolls, which I also have seen 10 million times, and Trolls World Tour movie. Can you take us through that experience?
It's a beautiful experience. It's a lot like coming here or do things. A lot of my life is just like a weird fantasy camp, you know, where I'm like, I can't believe I do this. I did a pro wrestling match. Like, I'm just out here having fun. And for that, it was just, again, my voice real getting out there, going in and doing an audition. And then the next thing I know, I'm in like a studio at Justin Timberlake's house having to sing songs. And like, it's so crazy. Like, I show my friends now. We were online. I was like, one of the weirdest things in my life is that if you go to try to look me up on Spotify and you like try to look up my comedy doesn't come up. It's like all these songs from Trolls, and there's like
I had that experience.
Yeah, and I'm like, one of the first things that comes up is that says that like, here, put your hair up, Justin Timberlake featuring Gwen Stefani and Ron Funches. And it's just wild, and it led to one of the things that really bothered me in the pandemic, besides, not being able to do the thing I loved the most, was stand-up, was that it canceled that premiere of that second movie, and I was going to get to...
Oh, yeah.
In the second movie, George Clinton and Mary J. Blige played Cooper's parents, and I was like, oh, I'll go get to meet Mary J. Blige, who's a big hero of mine, and George Clinton was one of the main reasons I got into stand-up comedy. It was going to see a Parliament Funkadelic concert in Portland, Oregon, and I had the time of my life. I danced for like 4 hours straight and just laughing and loving, having a good time with my ex-wife, and just had this joy. And I remember seeing them on the bus leaving, and there was just something in my brain that just went like, oh my God, I gotta go work at a bank tomorrow. They're gonna go do this again somewhere else tomorrow. And I was like, I want to figure out how I could be in the world where I do this again tomorrow.
That's the secret to life right there. That's it right there.
You just talked about you got to do a wrestling match. Wait, was it a professional wrestling match that you got to do?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that, because you trained wrestling, you loved wrestling. I one of my biggest disappointments in childhood was when I found out wrestling was fake.
What? It's fake? No.
It's one of the biggest disappointments. But tell me about your professional experience.
I still love it. I still into it. And it all came from, like, I had a friend who passed away probably when I was 30, so it was like 10 years ago, and it was just real sudden, and I was like, man, like, it kind of hit me with an early midlife crisis where I was like, well, what do I want to do? I'm gonna die, who knows what'll go happen. And then when I started to lose the weight, I was like, man, I want to see how far I could push my body and see what I'm capable of now, because I wasn't capable of doing much before. I never did any sports or anything like that. So I started going to pro wrestling class for a few months in this place called Santino Brothers, and they like just beat the crap out of me for months, just making me do. I remember one time the most thing we did like 350 squats at once to start the day.
Oh my God.
And then had us run for a while and then start training. And the fact that, like, and I was struggling, it wasn't like I was killing it, but I was like, oh, I did it. I did it. I went through this. I vomited, and then they made me clean up the vomit, which I think was very rude.
My mom used to do that too.
If you make me vomit, that's on you now.
It's character building exercises.
It really was.
Yeah.
And so I just learned a lot about myself, a lot about teamwork, a lot about pushing myself, and eventually, I'd always go to these events and was fans and friends with some wrestlers, and decided to do a match, and just didn't back out. So it finally happened, and had like a 20-minute match. People liked it. Got a lot of I got feedback from this wrestler probably none of you guys know, but it's important to me. There's this wrestler named Too Cold Scorpio who was Flash Funk in the WWF when I was younger, and he just was one of the coolest, like, black wrestlers of that time period, and he was at this show.
I was about to say, because Flash Funk, if there was a white wrestler named that, I'd been upset.
Oh yeah, no, not hopefully, thankfully not. But he was backstage at that show, and he came to me after my match, and he was like, I don't know you. He's like, they tell me you're not a wrestler, that you do comedy or whatever. He goes like I don't know what you do, but you are damn sure an entertainer. And I was like, that is all I need to hear.
And I've heard you speak about wrestling and what Jasmin spoke about it being fake and being about you like that relationship, that upfront relationship with the fans. Like, we all know it's fake, but we're going to put on a good show for you. You come for a good show, and you come to be excited, you know what I'm saying, to participate in it. Andy Kaufman on David Letterman, his shenanigans on a Letterman show, or even David Arquette, right? There's this documentary out about his journey with wrestling after he did that Ready to Rumble movie. I found that documentary fascinating. Just how people in his life, like, you are tripping. But he's like, no. There's something about this that I have to do. Matter of fact, I got to put the acting on hold because I got to do this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, it's just, I think sometimes you got to do things just because you want to do them. And for me, that's what pro wrestling was all about. It wasn't nothing to advance my career.
Right.
It wasn't,
fun.
mostly it was just fun. My manager was mad I was going to break my neck. It was doing that right before I was about to shoot the Loot show.
Right.
And so she was worried, but I was like, I got to do this to prove I can do this.
Yeah.
So it's just fun for me. I love it. So
that's beautiful.
I got to do a wrestling match before I go.
It.
I want to do it so bad. I really wish that I would have been like a wrestler when I was younger. Like I watched the Total Divas reality shows and find out it's not that hard. You just gotta be no. The training and stuff is hard. You just gotta be cute, and then they'll train you.
Yeah, they will.
We're gonna get one of them over here on this show.
A wrestler? Can we get the
Sure, Steve, get on that. Playing a tech-savvy King Shark on Harley Quinn looks fun. Harley Quinn, to me, is the best DC cartoon. I mean, Teen Titans is pretty good.
I agree with you.
But Harley Quinn is starting to creep up there, and it's for us. It's for adults. Just being in the DC universe as someone who's a nerd. And your King Shark is my favorite King Shark.
Thank you.
I mean, you got Sylvester Stallone doing a King Shark. The King Shark from the Flash TV show, he's all right. But yours is my favorite King Shark.
Yeah, they are false monarchs. I'm the one true king. And that's what I believe in. I want to be in the video game. If they put them in video games, that should be me. I like doing it. It's a fun character. It's real. It came off of, it's one of those things that's great because it comes off of like a failure. I was on this show called Powerless that people really didn't mess with. But all the same team pretty much went and did Harley Quinn, and people really enjoy it. And now I'm doing pretty much the same character, just me being me.
Okay.
There's nothing King Shark. There's nothing
No,
Shark.
it's you.
It's just me.
Yeah.
And I love it. I get to work with great people and do nerd stuff, and people like me. I like it when people like me at the places I'm going to be at anyway.
Yeah, man. Right. I like that too. I don't go no place where I'm not welcome and invited.
Amen, baby.
Now, you named your special Giggle Fit, which I was proud of myself for understanding, because you have a very infectious giggle, and you just got fit.
Yeah, you got it. You really, man, you got every level.
I was proud of myself. So, man, man, that was a great special. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I thought I was clever.
All right, so in 2022, one of the biggest thing everyone talks about is manifestation.
Yes.
So you are a strong believer in manifestation. You make your vision boards. I feel like you probably have vision board parties too.
Yes, ma'am.
But what tangible results did you see from your actual vision board making?
Thank you so much for asking
You're
me.
welcome so much.
I'll tell you this. The first vision board party I had was when I moved, 4 years after I moved here. I was living in my 2-bedroom apartment, me and my son, and the first thing I put on my vision board is that I wanted a house. I wanted a place where my son could be happy. I wanted a pool for my son. And then the next vision board party was at my new house. So that's a very true physical manifestation of that. A lot of things that I put on there, not everything, of course, works out. And it's not really about that for me. It's about, as I always put it, it's like just plotting a course, making a business plan, or like just knowing your journey. You wouldn't go out at sea without at least a map and plotting where you want to go. And for a vision board, for me, every year to check in. Again, it just came from like New Year's being either a time where I'd have to go do gigs that I hated, or just a bunch of people wanted to go out on dates and drink and stuff, and I don't drink. So I just wanted a place where I could kind of like just do positive stuff for New Year's, where we would come together, we write out our goals, our dreams, whether they were business-wise or even like, hey, if you want to get married, or if you just want to buy a Japanese toilet, which is one of my goals for this year, is to buy a full, not the top, full Japanese toilet is what I want, and I'm getting it. And
because you just get the bidet topper.
Yeah, a lot of people do. They stop there, and that's fine. But I want the full toilet. And then being able not only to write them down, but then like at the end of it, we all say it and say it in front of each other, And then that led to a lot of people collabing with things and communicating about what they wanted to do, and it's been very helpful. It's grown from just like me and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, to like we get 10, 20 people on a New Year's Eve, even if we had to do it on Zoom. It's a great time. I love doing it.
You inspire me to want to do those parties.
Let's do it. You just come to mine.
My baby mom used to She used to put Post-it notes all over the house.
Same.
And with like vision board type of stuff. But I used to get so annoyed by it. Not by what she was doing, but I just felt like there was a better way to do it. I'm like, can we frame this stuff? Can we put on nicer paper, some nicer fonts? Like these random Post-it notes.
You gotta do it as you go. If you add in the framing, the fonts, the pens, then it's like it deters you from doing it. I don't know where she got that from. I got it from Being Mary Jane. She had Post-it note. It's the TV show with Gabrielle Union on BET.
Oh, we've heard of it.
Well, y'all didn't look like y'all heard.
I didn't. I just following along.
It was a weighty show. But anyway, so I did that. And it really helps. And like, even like just little reminders, like, you know, you got it. You're beautiful. You're enough. Like, whatever. Yeah. Like, it helps you.
Now, Ron, thank you for coming on our show.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
We really appreciate having you on here. To close out, can you give us some advice for quote-unquote black nerds who are growing up in hard neighborhoods? And how do you balance the pressures of the neighborhood with the desire to be yourself and find your passion?
Oh, man. I think the best advice I got is just the lessons I went through myself from moving around so much, from moving from the south side of Chicago to places like Salem, Oregon, and just having things that were cool in Chicago people didn't know about in Oregon. Things that were cool in Oregon were definitely not cool in Chicago. And that was the first time where I was like, oh, I just gotta be cool with me. I gotta like whatever I'm into. And that's fine. Like, it'll draw the people that you're supposed to be around. Like, the best piece of advice my mom gave me was this advice she gave me the first day of school. She's like, there's going to be people who you meet when you go to school who will like you for who you are. You're going to be people who you meet that will never like you no matter how much you're willing to change for them. So the people who are for you, go with them. The rest, fuck them. And that's pretty much been my mantra with life.
Amen.
Yes, indeed.
Well, what is next for Ron Funches?
Try and hang out with my baby and watch him and not miss things. That's my plan, is to hopefully see all these milestones, see these first steps. He had his first laugh a couple of days ago when I was home for that. So that was a good start. And hopefully I see them steps. I see all those things. That's what I really want. So I'm trying to stay home more and just do, gigs on the road that I really love and enjoy. I am touring a little bit now. So if people want to come see me, just go around funches.com, look for tickets, going a few places, and then we got season 2 of Loot already, which is amazing for me. Yeah. I'm used to like a full, you got 3 episodes deep, and they were like, you could come back. I'm used to the show fully airing. I'm used to like them being like, well, let's see how these other shows are going to do and how the tide comes in, and if we have Mercury retrograde, then we're going to decide if your show comes back or not. So for them to know that I have a job is just beautiful. So I'm just going to try to keep headed towards that and try to, like I said, let's work more money. That's my plan.
Let's work more money for this 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, the People's Party is proud to have Ron Funches.
I'm about to get that tatted. Let's work more money.